My mom is smaller than me. She's like this tall. And she was trying to put her hands in my head, and over my brother's head to protect our heads. My dad, in the opposite way, was trying to hug me and hug my brother, and he was praying loud. His intention was to put our attention in the prayer and not in the sound of the debris hitting the wall of our house. And we start to pray with him, loud, each time louder, 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 to avoid pay attention outside. And then suddenly the words, they start to lose their meaning because we are just repeating as a mantra that we try to internalize to put our attention in that present. And suddenly we've heard a strong sound, and it was our roof coming from the front of the house to the back of the house. And we were hugging each other, and then my mom said to me, if the destructions become bigger outside on the street, each one will take care of yourself. And then my brother asked, Mom, where should I go? And she was silent. I said, go to the church, because churches are sacred places, they should be safe. And then I started to realize that by the first time I saw the maternal instinct of my mom was giving space to the survivor instinct. And it was shocking for me because, she's my mom. And then I realized that she still was trying to protect us. And she didn't move. And my dad was hugging us. And then I realized that she was not trying to protect herself. She was saying, take care of yourself. Don't pay attention to me. And at that moment, I felt deeply calm because the hurricane could come and destroy everything, but we will be together. Coincidentally, this was my first year in university, and I choose history because for me the things have to make sense, and learn with the past is one way to share knowledge. And when I've met environmental history, I started to realize that I could be a researcher because I could answer some strong social demands. This is our house. This is my mom, Donna Gladys. And when I was starting my PhD, you are in this exciting moment and you start to explain to everyone that you met about your research. And I've met a friend and we were having lunch and I was giving these boring explanations about our research. And she said, oh, now I understand. Your research is your search. And then because by the first moment this was a little bit obvious because, I have to do my research. But suddenly I realized that, no, there is a philosophical meaning here. Because I try to produce some knowledge to myself also. Because I try to understand myself. I try to understand my life doing my research. And then I let my experience guide my research, my personal doubts, and I try to produce a relevant research for me. Because I knew that producing a relevant research for me, I was producing a relevant research for the society. In 2004, this first year of the Hurricane Katrina, the lack of understanding about what was happening was the role. They spent a year to offer a report about the hurricane that the first time was a cyclone and then becomes a hurricane. And during this year, no one could understand exactly what was happening. But they said but the civil defense could sharply realize that something was wrong. And it was 2004, now we have 10 years later, and then there is no public policy to deal with hurricanes in Brazil. So I choose to do this research to analyze if and how the environmental perception of people changed after disasters. And I'm also trying to understand how this changing affects the collective memory about disasters. Okay, talking about perception. The perception of the people change every time. We are here, our perception about environment is changing because we are having different relations with environment every time. But disasters, they could offer us a new experience, of course, that will direct and will amplify this kind of perception. But our perception is limited. When we put focus in one object, we start to lose the perception of the whole environment, for example. As our friend here, Qui-Gon Jinn, the Jedi Knight Qui-Gon Jinn, is saying to us, our reality is defined by our focus. So, what I'm trying to do with the interviews is to understand how this perception is changing in the south of Santa Catarina state in Brazil. And the answer that I'm having is yes, that perception of people is changing. And yes, they try to suffer at each time less with disasters because, you know, no one, at least I don't know people that would like to live a new disasters, you know. But the problem is that choosing strategies of these people to deal with disasters are based in their meanings and in their perceptions about disasters and the environment. And there is a problem, as I said, about the selectivity of perception. But other problem that I'm dealing in my research is the selectivity of memory. Because when we try to remember some things, we are not able to do that because our brain does not record everything. So there is this problem. But there are also other problem to deal with this dilution of the past. The selectivity of representation. Because when we try to speak to someone and tell our stories, we choose different parts of our story to put some sense in the narrative. So there is also this selection in the structures of representation. So you must be wondering, and what about people's agency and experience? As I said, for me, things have to make sense. And to understand this kind of approach, I'm using the analogy of Jiu-Jitsu, the martial art that I'm practicing. In Jiu-Jitsu, the role of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is adaptation. This martial art, the Jiu-Jitsu, came from Japan to Brazil in the beginning of 20th century. It's the father of Judo. In Judo, we have these special movements that you have to do always in the same way to become more technical and beautiful. But in Jiu-Jitsu, you don't need to do this. You have to adapt your body to Jiu-Jitsu and Jiu-Jitsu to your body. So since the white belt, you have to try to understand the different opponents that you can fight. And then after the fights, you will learn or you will win, as the master Carlos Gracie is saying in this picture. So getting back to disasters. The professor Seth Stein has a very interesting sentence to explain disaster. He said, the disasters are the price that we pay to live in a living planet. So they are inevitable. We will live with them. Other goals, aims of my research is try to understand if the collective memory can be used as a tool to mitigate disaster, this sharing of experience. Each community that I made in my research has a specific ways to deal with them collective memory. For example, in the extreme south, in the city called Praia Grande, Long Beach, but there is no beach and they are not so good, so big. They are far from the big main road in the coast of Brazil, and because of this, they have since before 1974 they had no connection with the government. So they produce identity of reconstruction based on the floods that they have all the time. In the biggest city, Tubarão, the big city of the South Brazil, of the south of the Santa Catarina, sorry. There is this collective memory about victimization because they don't realize that they are in the environment. They are perceiving the environment as threatening them, and they are not connected to this kind of things. So the function of memory is bring some sense to our lives. But when the memory when some events of the present do not enter in the past, do not go to the past, we have what we call it trauma, because some events of the past insist in remain in the present. So when we cannot deal with some struggles that are holding our memories, we have a problem. So a happy memory, as Paul Ricardo said, is a memory that could deal with the needing to forget and the work of remembering. So the necessity to forget is based in our understandings about disaster. Bad things happen all the time, and we should not see disasters as a disruption moment. Disasters, they are inscribed in our lives, and we should realize them as a process that produce conditions and also are conditioned by human experience in life. So disasters, they have a lot of things to tell about ourselves, but only if we choose to learn. Something that I've learned about disasters is we become strongly powerful when we don't have other choices. And now, we don't have other choices. We have to deal with disasters. Obrigado.